We got a month until the NBA season, so it's time for us to shift our focus from dynasty basketball to redraft basketball. And to get ready for that, we're going to do a mock draft today. How's it going, everybody? My name is Andrew. This is the Angle Fantasy Basketball Podcast. If you want to check out our content, make sure to go to anglefantasybasketball.wordpress.com. Follow us on Twitter at AngleFantasyBB. You'll see all of our content. All of our ideas are on there. And if you are listening on audio or watching on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe and like or rate this video, whatever it is you're able to do on that platform. Mitchell, our first video that we ever did, our first podcast that we ever did was you and I doing a Yahoo mock draft. We're doing what I refer to as the grandfather format, 12 teams, 9 categories. How are you doing today? How are you feeling about us doing another mock draft here?
Man, when you talk about it that way, it's very nostalgic. Just kind of looking back, our first YouTube video ever started with a redraft mock draft. And now we're doing this in the early process, and I'm just really looking forward to it. There's a lot of movement, a lot of big names creeping into the first round, namely Victor Wembanyama, and also a huge debate between, are we going to choose some of the aging stars at the back end of the first round with Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, or are we going for some of the more up-and-coming talent with Trae Young and Anthony Edwards? So I'm really excited, Andrew, and it's really been a really fun journey this last year on YouTube.
Absolutely, absolutely. We passed all the goals that we were looking for, and it's been a fun ride. We plan to continue that. So not only are we starting to do this redraft mock draft podcast process early, but we're going to do multiple to get everybody prepared for the upcoming redraft season. Because for those of you that do play Dynasty, I know a lot of our content over the off season was all purely Dynasty focused, but we do still have redraft content too. And for those of you that are in Dynasty, redraft is most likely the first thing that you started in. So obviously we're not going to abandon that. It's something we're gonna continue to do every year. So we're gonna get started early on these ones. And as part of today's exercise, we picked where we're gonna go from, and we are actually gonna have me pick first. So I am going to do my best at building a Victor Wembanyama team. So Mitch, a question that was asked to me by Mark on the Punt Intended podcast, you were on that one as well. I'm going to ask this back to you. What do you think about people bringing up the possibility of wanting to install third round reversal in redraft leagues due to the threat of Wembanyama? I mean, do we think it's really legitimate, even though he's only been here for a year, or is it a bit of an overreaction thinking about some of the numbers some of the former number ones have put up?
I'm a little bit in the middle of that discussion. Yes, Victor Wembanyama is a theoretical alien in terms of fantasy output. You know, you think of some of the all-time greats like Hakeem Olajuwon, but with Victor, you get threes and you get, some of those assists as well. And he's just such a unique prospect overall. And we've seen dominant players over the last 5 to 10 years like James Harden, KD in his prime, and also, recently Nikola Jokic. So it is interesting. I don't know. We never really seen a prospect or a player like Victor. We kind of have to wait and see a little bit until he hits his prime, if he really skews the results and production in a way that's just honestly unfair. So I want to say, let's wait a year or so. Let's see what he does in his sophomore season, and then we can kind of pivot from there.
Yeah, I think the biggest reason why people are so threatened by him is the defensive output. So if we think about the former number ones, the strong number ones, Harden and Jokic, they were obviously putting up massive volume in scoring, rebound, assists, and then in Harden's case, 3-pointers as well too. But they weren't, defensive stalwarts by any means, neither one of them. They're decent, but nothing crazy. Whereas with Victor, he is an absolute game changer in pretty much both defensive categories. So it's like, not only do you have to worry about superstar output in points and rebounds, he also gets some assists and threes, but you have to worry about him completely altering the landscape of your battle in both defensive categories. And I think that's what makes him the most intimidating to people. So that's who I'm going to try to build around at 1. I know there might be a little bit of the population out there who's not going to pick him at 1, but I'm going to do that today. And then, Mitch, you are going to be picking from 11. So my thought about picking late, so if we're talking about, a 12-team format, 10, 11, 12, is you normally kind of get forced into that depth role as opposed, or depth squad build as opposed to stars and scrubs. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I would have to agree. And this is a really tough position, especially for this year. You're kind of forced to take some risks and gambles. Someone like Anthony Edwards is a popular target amongst many, where he really hasn't proven to be a top 20 contributor on a per game basis. But he's also young, so there could be some, underlying potential output that we're not seeing yet. Or do we go with someone like Steph Curry, who we know has top 10 production, but is also, on the later side of the 30s? So it's a little bit of a hard year to be in the back end of the draft. I'm just looking at quickly and glancing at the pre-draft rankings. At the front where Victor is, you can possibly get someone like Chet in the back end of the second round, just completely dominate blocks, or you can and pair him with someone like Scotty Barnes or LaMelo Ball, who could possibly fall, who is a potential first round per game type guy. So I feel like it's a little bit unfair just because of all the ambiguity back in the mid and to late first round. But Andrew, I do want to say with Victor, you can build around in many different ways. Is there a potential pairing mate that you'd like at the turnaround from rounds 2 and 3?
It's so hard because when you're picking at number 1, you're not going to pick again until the very end of round 2. And so it's kind of hard to think about who you want to be there. I think I'm going to try to definitely grab defense early, especially some like a shot blocker, either right there or my turn of it, because I'm going to pick 2 in a row. So I think I'm going to secure blocks with one of them and then go best available on the next one. But it's also potentially possible if someone falls to me that I'll do best available twice.
Right. I mean, just looking at it now, you can get someone like Damian Lillard, another former first round guy that's over the last 5 years. There's also, LeBron James, or if you want to take an up and coming stud like Jalen Brunson or Tyrese Maxey, there's a lot of exciting options if you're picking number 1. And if you do obviously secure Victor Wembanyama, lots of flexibility there.
All right, so here we are, 50 seconds until this draft's about to start. Mitch, who do you think you're going to be targeting here at 11?
At 11, I tend to go with guys who are a little bit more established. Steph Curry is a target for me personally. Part of playing fantasy is to have that homer bias. You want to draft players that you enjoy watching. After seeing Curry in his Olympic run, it's just so much fun just watching him play. But I will say, if someone like Joel Embiid or Giannis or even Anthony Davis falls to me, it's going to be really hard to pass them up.
I can definitely understand that. All right, 10 seconds going in here. So for potential build partner too, trying to look ahead here at what I might be looking at on my turns in round 2 and 3. Very interesting. All right, so I'm going to make nobody wait. I'm going to go ahead and select Victor right now. Let's get the ball rolling.
So Andrew, is there any type of discussion, in your head if you were to ever consider Nikola Jokic, or I guess anyone outside of Victor Wembanyama at that first spot?
Only if I for some reason had like some type of injury concern or something like that with Victor, which I don't, then I would. Like, he proved to be healthy last year. I know there was people prior to last year, like during his draft process, and they still exist today that are super worried about his skinny frame and think he's going to be hurt. So there might be a few people here and there that are still kind of believing in that and will pass up on Victor and go with the safer choice, which the next choice should probably be Jokic from there, or maybe Embiid, but I think majority of the time it's going to be Jokic. So with Wembanyama though, he should be one overall. I mean, it's really really hard to predict injuries, but for the most part, in his rookie season, things seemed pretty good. He seemed pretty durable. I know there's a lot of very unique workouts that he does, specifically meant for his frame to keep himself healthy. Especially a lot of stuff involving being barefoot to make sure like his feet and ankles, have a good amount of strength and flexibility.
And what's really crazy about Victor, we saw that production as a rookie, and he didn't even average, over 30 minutes a game. So lots
Mm-hmm.
of untapped potential we're eventually able to see this upcoming season, especially now that the Spurs really want to try to win around them, given the moves for Chris Paul and, Harrison Barnes.
Absolutely. All right. So rolling up soon for you here. There's KD, Trae Young, Steph Curry, Donovan Mitchell, and Kyrie Irving are at the top of the board here. All right.
Yeah, so unfortunately, some of the guys that I was hoping to fall, like Giannis, Embiid, and Anthony Davis, were taken. So at this point, I'm taking Steph Curry and really drafting someone that I believe still has that top 10 potential, a little bit on the older side, but also someone that uh, can really give me a solid anchor at those three spots and also those points. Given the leave of Klay Thompson, Steph Curry is going to have a greater role in terms of usage as well. And looking into this next pick, Donovan Mitchell just got taken, and so did Anthony Edwards. I was hoping to probably get Kevin Durant, and here we are. Here we are as well. We can pair up that fantastic duo once again. Potentially having two top 10 talents. Yes, there's a lot of injury concerns, but I'm building a team around efficiency, and also a great base for in terms of counting stats as well. So,
Absolutely.
Andrew, I know in those projections for the next two picks of yours, is there anyone that you're leaning towards or anyone that you're actually hoping to fall? Someone like potentially a Kyrie Irving, there's a lot of people that kind of stay away from him. Or is there also a younger player that you're very excited about in terms of a potential youth movement with Victor?
I mean, if a lot of these guys, except maybe yeah, for a couple of them, maybe two or three of them are all on like the veteran side, either older ones like Kyrie or in the middle range like someone like a Brunson is. So some of the younger ones here, I mean, I'm trying to think of fits with Victor, and when I'm thinking to the defensive side, and when you ask me about who I want to fall, yes, obviously I can get really lucky and maybe someone like a Booker or Sabonis will fall to me. So I'm going to jump all over that if that does happen. But being more realistic here, if somebody like Scotty Barnes is in my range, who I think is a good candidate to go before me, but could still potentially be there when I'm up there to pick. That's someone who I would like to fall to me. And then I wanted Chet, but I saw that he just got taken at 16th. So looks like that one's not going to be an option. But I'm going to keep an eye on Scotty here, and maybe somebody like a Booker, Sabonis, or even LaMelo Ball might potentially drop to me here for my next pick. So I'm going to keep a close eye on this one. But um, I'm going to try to stick to what I said. I'm going to go with somebody who's more on the defensive side for one of these picks because I am going to make back-to-back picks, and then the next one's going to be the best available player regardless of what he does.
Got it. Got it. If Scotty is not an option, is someone a little bit older that still provides defensive stats like a Paul George an option for you?
I think so. I mean, there's the potential for him to have usage spikes if there's times when Embiid is not playing. I think somebody like Paul George is totally reasonable, especially for that defensive output to match with Victor, especially really spiking into the steal side where Victor's going to handle the block side. And then, of course, Paul George is going to add a lot more diversity to the stat set as well, especially with 3-point output and scoring too. But I still see both LaMelo and Brunson there. Two picks until my turn. This guy might auto pick one of them though. Oh, okay. Looks like I'm getting one of LaMelo or Brunson first. Let's see. It's going to be Brunson. That's a
Ooh,
pretty easy
LaMelo
decision.
just got taken. That
Yeah,
would
I'm
have been
gonna.
a steal for you.
Yeah, that would have been nice. That would have been at 23. So we have Brunson and Paul George here. Mm, yeah, Brunson should for sure be in the top 30. He's the safer option between the two. And then yeah, we're going to also probably bring in Paul George. This one's actually kind of tough because De'Aaron Fox is still there, but I just can't deny the just like fit profile that Paul George has is very complementary to the 9 category game. So I'm going to go with him too. So at 24 and 25, I took Brunson and Paul George to complement Wembanyama. I mean, I know we do a lot of dynasty content, so a lot of people who follow who are really into dynasty kind of really have that youth mindset, and sometimes it carries over into redraft too. But in redraft, you really don't want to look as much into age, nearly not as much as you would for the dynasty perspective. So it's definitely something that you have to take in consideration. You just needed to take in consideration immediate output. What's this guy going to bring to me in at minimum 60 games for me this year? You got to assume at least somewhere around that, just because injuries happen to everybody. Nobody's invulnerable to them. So you have to take that into account and just look at averages at this point. But there is some guys where you got to look at it from the volume they can put up too.
And, with Victor Wembanyama taking a lot of threes, you're not really building a team around that field goal efficiency. So Paul
Mm-hmm.
George makes perfect sense. You already have the threes, you could punt the field goal, and you could just totally dominate with those tertiary stats and also counting stats. So I do really enjoy that pick. And then that Brunson pick really gives you a really nice points anchor as well to build around Wemby.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So we got your pick coming up here. So I took some stalwarts in regards to the NBA landscape. I'm seeing a lot of youth on the board coming around for your turn here. How are you feeling about this? You got Cade, Jalen Johnson, Paolo still there, Evan Mobley still there, John Morant, Jalen Williams. What there's a bit of a youth
Ooh.
turn here for you. So what are you looking at?
Right now, it's really tough. I'm starting to think I should pivot from looking into those defensive stats. I think with the Steph Curry and KD combo, I would punt steals at this point and focus on some of those volume stats and potentially someone who I really wanted just got sniped from me. I really wanted Jalen Williams, who was going to
Ah,
be someone who would have been a nice usage boost with the exit of Josh Giddey. With that being said, I am going to go with Cade Cunningham with my first pick here. And I think it's also because Cade is going to have shooters around him. So expect an increase in efficiency and those assist numbers where he did average almost nearly 8 assists a game. He's going to be playing with some better players now. So potentially a double threat on a day to day basis. And
mm-hmm.
with my next pick here, this is where it gets a little bit tough. I do love Paulo, but I do want to stay a little bit away from him in a categories league. I'm going to take John Morant here. So I'm going to really
Oh.
hone in on a bounce back season from John Morant, but also a lot of my guys, barring Cade Cunningham, have pretty solid field goal percentage. And I still think I can, um, you know, take some bigs later on. Just like last year, there's a lot of bigs that could be found in the mid to late rounds that provide excellent value. So hopefully in these next couple picks, that's where I'm kind of going to be leaning here.
I see. I see that. I like that. That's because, like, for example, with Cade Cunningham, because sleepers exist all throughout the whole draft landscape. It's not just at the end of the draft. There's guys that have potential to outperform their ADP. So one that I'm keeping a very close eye on and brings me some excitement is the possibility of Cade Cunningham with actual shooters and spacing around him. I don't know why I thought you were going to potentially go Miles Turner with the second one, just because Steph Curry and Miles Turner is a pretty OG 9 category duo that happens quite a bit. But with the John Morant pick, that's a good one. That's a very good bet for upside on both of the ones that you took there. A bounce back season for Ja and just the Memphis Grizzlies, franchise in general. This upcoming year, they got Zach Edey with them now, so Ja's got a new big man to partner up with, and everybody's going to hopefully be healthy again coming into this year too. So exciting things for Memphis, who were a 2 seed not too long ago.
A lot of people forgot about John Morant, but he's back and he's ready to, make a statement. So Andrew, here, a lot of interesting choices. Uh, a lot of guys in their mid-20s actually. Um, would you consider someone like a Zion Williamson, or is that too much risk given you already have someone like Paul George and Victor Wembanyama? or are you going for someone who's a little bit younger, like a Jalen Duran?
So what I want to do here, because I complimented one side of Victor's defense, so now I want to compliment the other one, which is the block side. So I'm going to take Jarrett Allen right here to also lock down another center. I like to get my centers early, but I am going to go with what you mentioned, which is, at least so far, I'm trending towards potentially punting field goals, having Wemby and Paul George on the team. So I went with Jarrett Allen just to lock down rebounds and blocks too. But now I'm gonna go with upside here. We're gonna take Zion here because I love the weight loss that we're seeing from him. I just want to see Zion Williamson with more mobility, flexibility, balance to himself, and what kind of translation that is going to have to his game. Because he's obviously still going to be strong. We've seen guys who are a lot bigger lose weight and are still strong. Like, for example, I know this is a different sport, but like Alexander Volkanovski, like that rugby strength of him being over 200 pounds carried over to even though when he's 140 pounds. So Zion being so huge for such a long time, if he was over, and I think he was most likely in the 300 range last year. So if he's now like closer to like 260, 250 right now and still carries the strength of when he was bigger like that and is going to be healthier, that brings me a lot of excitement this year. And for redraft, especially for that being my fifth pick, I like taking a little bit of a gamble there because I think I went pretty safe with the 3 picks after Wemby because I wanted to establish a good base. Brunson, Paul George, and then Jarrett Allen to complement the big man stats that Wemby provides. And then now I wanted to go with some upside, who also does have complementary asset or skill set to Wemby, which is with Zion here.
One comment I do want to make about Zion is that he does potentially have that, second round upside if his stocks ever return from those Duke numbers. And that's when he was also in the best shape of his life. And we're seeing that now in the offseason. And another thing about Zion is that he's transitioning from his healthiest season in a really long time. So hopefully he carries over that momentum and those stock numbers return. And, hypothetically, that team could be a stock machine if all things hit. A lot of risk and reward given the injury concerns, but looking with these other teams that are drafting here, definitely the highest upside out of the rest of the mock draft.
Right. So let me take over here for a sec while you decide on what you're going to be doing next. So we got a few options that are coming up for you here. We have Nikola Vucevic, we have Brandon Ingram, Nicholas Claxton, Darius Garland, Zach LaVine, or potentially another bounce back bet for you. Or are you going to go with somebody safer here? There's some youth upside on the board too. Brandon Miller is still here. I'm actually kind of surprised about that one because we are currently at pick 58, which was just Vucevic. Mitch, what are you thinking here? It is currently your turn.
Man, there's a lot of options that I do not like a Tobias Harris.
Mm-hmm.
There's, a Darius Garland, who I'm not the biggest fan of, and also Brandon Ingram. But I'm going to take, oh man, I was about to hit Devin Vassell. That's who I wanted to take, but the timer unfortunately ran out.
It's quick.
Yeah, it is very quick.
We're gonna pretend it's Vassell.
Yeah, we'll pretend it's Vassell. But I'm fine with Brandon Ingram. I guess not the guy I was hoping for, given the return for DeJounte Murray that the Pelicans received and only shipping out a Dyson Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
Not too much usage going around over there. But let's say I did get a Devin Vassell. I
Yes.
definitely need a center here. I'm looking, and I think I want Mark Williams. Mark Williams or a Nick Claxton. I do want to say Mark Williams will have better rebounding numbers and better free throw that fits a team like Curry, Cunningham, and Durant. But it's tough because Nick Claxton really locks down the blocks. I'm going to say hopefully that back issue is fixed. Reportedly, it is. I'm going to go with Mark Williams because he's my guy for a while now. So
That's
Mark
true.
Williams here with pick 62.
I like that. That Mark Williams is your guy. So now, when I'm looking at my team when you were making your pick, and I was thinking about trending towards punting field goals with Paul George and Victor, but then I took on Zion and Jarrett Allen. So also combined with Jalen Brunson, I wonder, do you think the potentially it should shift backwards towards going towards field goal percentage or could I potentially have the be able to be good at both of the percentage categories, field goal and free throw at this point? I feel like it's not very clear exactly what my team's strength is going to be within those two. I think so far I don't have a ton of 3-pointers outside of Paul George, so that's one thing that's notable. But across the board, there's a lot of other things that are there category wise.
Yeah, it's very, the thing about field goal is that it's such a highly variant
Mm-hmm.
category that if you have a hot week, you can totally carry over, and you can definitely have a cold week given, you do have a lot of volume shooters. To me, because you have that mix, I would consider it a swing skill, not necessarily punting, but building off on those key categories that you already have, like a blocks and a points, would probably be my way to go, and kind of disregarding field goal altogether and just really taking the best value that you can based on those key strengths that you have already established.
Very good. So now I'm on a tough choice here. I might actually just take both of them. I'm trying to decide between Michael Porter Jr. and Keegan Murray. Obviously, both will mostly Keegan Murray will provide assistance in the defense. They're both going to knock down threes, and I can add that to my category output too. So I believe because I do have two centers locked down, I'm going to take Keegan first because I wanted him the most. And now with a fresh 30 seconds on here, I'm going to think this through a little bit more. So Michael Porter Jr. is here. This would be pick 73.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to rope back around. I think there's guys that are kind of hidden down the board that are still going to be there. And Michael Porter's pretty safe right here for what he does. Denver didn't really do anything different. And actually, the big name they tried to add, Durant Holmes, got hurt. So I'm going to go with Michael Porter Jr. again. There was actually some mild speculation that he might have gotten or he might get traded, but didn't happen. He's still in Denver. It's probably going to be the exact same role again. And he and Keegan Murray are fairly similar. So I knocked down two other forward positions. They provide a little bit of defense, but mostly 3-pointers and scoring too, and are both pretty efficient in what they do, which is like what I wanted to do is not add even more variance to what both my field goal percentage and free throw percentage is going to be.
Shout out Keegan Murray, someone who really is locking down the threes for you. What people don't remember is that I think he broke the record for most threes a game as a rookie with over 200. So, two guys like Porter and Keegan really holding it down there for you. But kind of just looking down the board, would you have considered someone up and coming like a Jabari Smith or a Trey Murphy, or do you prefer those guys who are in a little bit more established teams like a Denver and a Sacramento team?
I feel like I kind of feel myself like reacting to the fact that I have Zion. So I wanted two guys that are going to be safe and steady. And I think both Porter and Murray absolutely represent that. So, someone like who you mentioned is definitely a potential candidate that I would have considered, but I needed to go safe here just for the fact that I do have Zion on the team. But I am still very, very high that Zion turned around the health issues. So now 15 seconds on the clock for you here. Who are you thinking?
Ooh, this one's tough, but I'm going to shock the world. Shout out to your Naz Reid video. I'm going to take
Oh,
Naz Reid.
oh.
Yep.
So you're betting
It's a
on
little bit
Minnesota
of
making
a
a
reach.
trade. Oh,
It's a little bit of a reach, but he's really, what I'm looking for here. A guy who
uh-huh.
can do a 1-1-1, threes, steals, blocks, but also fits my points build as well as a potential breakout candidate. Next, I'm going to take another one of my favorites. I'm going to take Jalen Suggs here. The guy,
Yes.
um, you know, he is very reminiscent of Drew Holiday, who went pick before, but I think Suggs has a lot more left in the tank, given that the Magic are pretty depleted at the guard spot, and he's the one that really stood out among that core unit with Fultz on the way out. So I think there is some hidden upside there with Jalen Suggs, and he really locks down some of those out of position blocks that I want, but also he shot over 40% from three. So he really fits my three and kind of a defense build that I'm looking into. So now, Andrew, there's a lot of interesting candidates here as well. I'm looking at this. Chris Paul is a potential candidate for you if you want to really make a name for yourself in those assist categories. And also, it would just be fun to draft Victor's point guard as well, seeing those lobs. on a game to game basis. Is he something that's on your radar, or is he just a little bit too old for your liking at this point of the draft?
Yeah, it looks like assists aren't really too heavy into my build at this point. I mean, aside from Brunson and George and a tiny bit of Victor, I really don't have anybody that's providing solid assists for me. So I think I'm going to ignore that category for now. Focus more on guys who are efficient and put up production everywhere else. So I'm looking at Austin Reaves right now. He is currently on the board. One thing I'm potentially thinking about is Kristaps Porzingis is still here. I know he's injured, but I wonder if this is a potential draft and stash situation because this would be pick 97. But the more I think about it, I'm not sure that I want to do it. RJ Barrett is still there, which very much interests me, not so much from an efficiency standpoint, but just from a volume standpoint, adding points and assists, points and rebounds. But I don't have assists in the build. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take your boy Kuminga, actually.
Ooh, I was thinking about that. Yeah,
I went a little
that's a
Lakers
good one.
Warriors split there. Their two golden boys, Reaves and Kuminga.
Mm, that's a good one. A thing about Kuminga is there is no, real number two option on the Warriors. And a lot of Warriors fans and, a lot of analysts in, the Warriors space are speculating him to step up as that number two option. So we've seen him have stretches where he was averaging over 23, 24 points per game. Hopefully that is consistent moving forward because, the Warriors are really going to need it. So I love that play from you, Andrew, especially with a pairing with like a Zion.
Mm-hmm.
Field goal might actually be a strength for you. You're taking some efficient shooters with Keegan and PJ, but then you're also getting someone like Kuminga, Zion, and Brunson. So it's a great build looking for you. So
Yeah, because Reaves doesn't hurt your field goal percentage either. So I think I'm leaning more towards that and going to be okay with guys like Zion and Jarrett Allen missing free throws. I know Victor's free throw percentage isn't. Trying to think of what his is. I'm trying to remember if he's very good at free throws or not, but probably focusing more on padding the field goal percentage at this point. And it looks like the one category I'm for sure punting away now is going to be assists. There's really the only guys on my team that get assists is like only a couple of them, mainly Brunson, and he's not like of the highest assist caliber if we're talking about straight point guards in this league too. I think that's for sure the category that I'm punting. I'm loving the rebounds at this point. The more I think about it too, I'm really loving grabbing Kuminga in the 90s, 97. I'm actually liking that more and more now that I think about it. So really lock down points, rebounds, field goal percentage, not looking too much into free throw percentage. And then the full category that I'm punting away is going to be assists. I'm trying to be good at both defensive categories. And one thing that hasn't been mentioned that I think, you and I don't really care about is turnovers, because something that really doesn't get factored into a person's build is what they're going to do turnover wise. So, it's probably why you and I haven't really talked about that today.
mhm. And tracing back to my last two picks, I took pretty much the best value play here with the OG Anunoby. Something
Oh,
about OG that we were discussing earlier on is that, the last four seasons, the lowest he was ranked was, I believe, 80th in 9 cat, with three of the last four being in the top 50 per game. So a lot of high risk, high reward here, given his injury history. But at pick 107, I think I just had to take him. And then, on the turnaround, I took Ivica Zubac. The Clippers need scoring. They're very depleted at the center spot, and there's a lot of speculation too here within the fantasy community that Ivica Zubac is a potential late round steal as well. So I took Zubac. He doesn't hurt my free throw, so I'm really happy with how my draft is looking. I have a lot of bigs who can rebound, also block shots, but also that don't hurt my efficiency as well. So I'm looking more at a kind of like a cleaner build here. Andrew, so for your next pick, we kind of get into that sleeper range that we take some of these gambles. Is there anyone around this area that you're interested in? I know there's some bets like Mike Conley that have proven top 100 upside, or are you looking at some of the younger guys like a Trace Jackson Davis or a Brandin Podziemski?
Pods is one of the ones that I was thinking about. So what I'm doing right now is I'm locking down my points expert, my person who's going to be the final nail in the coffin for points without hurting my field goal percentage, and that's Collin Sexton. So happy to add him right here at 120. This is more of a specialist that's complementary to my build. I want to be able to score a shitload of points without having a big impact on my field goal percentage, and he helps me do that a lot. Who I'm going with next, I am going to go with Podziemski. I know the efficiency is probably not going to be there, but I want his volume, I want his points and rebounds, and I want the steals that he's going to provide too, upside and three-pointers too.
Yeah, Podziemski is a guy that the Warriors are really looking forward to stepping up. There's been rumors that they want him to take 8 to 10 threes a game, which is a little bit nuts, but that kind of really goes to show that they're advocating for the kid and that he's really, really expected to step up in the upcoming season. And he's also a guy that can potentially give you a 15, 5 and 5 with 2 threes, maybe a couple steals a game or one and a half steals a game, given his steal rate, and also playing an enlarged role in this season here. So love that pick. And I see you also took Trayce Jackson-Davis, another sophomore player
Okay,
from
so what
that
happened?
same rookie class.
I'm getting a free pass, like you too with the Vassell one. It auto drafted Jackson Davis, but I meant to do Podziemski while I was talking.
Oh,
so we both get one mulligan. Once we get into the later rounds with these Yahoo mocks, the people we usually leave, so some auto drafting will start to happen. So it'll speed up a bit, which is kind of what's happening here. But in the future mock draft that we're going to do, probably a lot closer to this season when we have some more questions answered, especially when we're talking preseason, potential injuries that happen, we're going to be doing a planned out Fantrax draft with members of the Angle server who so we're going to be able to add more time in and talk, and we'll of course have Braxton included for that one as well. But we wanted to get this one done to, like we said, we have a lot of dynasty focused content that was coming out. So knock the rust off and get some redraft things going. Who are you looking at here, Mitch? 23 seconds on the clock.
Ooh, right here. This one is tough. Oh, I I think I'm just gonna take my guy. I'm going to take Dyson Daniels here. Someone
Nice.
who's going to lock down defense for me, get those get not out of position because he might play, one of the guard spots, but gives me some nice assists that I'm looking at, but also doesn't really kill me because in field goal because he is pretty low volume. So a defensive specialist there. Next pick, man, this is a good part of the draft. You can go many different directions. I'm gonna take Jaquez here.
Nice.
Oh wait, it auto drafted for me, but I wanted to take Jaquez, um, given his high field goal, great free throw, and he's also a potential guy like a Podziemski where he can provide you like a 15, 5 and 5 if all things go right, and if he does have an extended role.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Butler is potentially on the move. I know the Heat were looking to trade him, but I know given his contract, it's not the easiest task to do. But given that the Heat are trying to look into a different direction, Jaime Jaquez is a potential sleeper in my opinion.
Very nice. I like that pick. All right, so we're rolling around to my next one here, and pretty much all three of the sleepers that I had planned are still there. One of the sleepers that I was potentially going to talk about today does not fit my build at all because I am going to fully punt assists. So I'm just going to give a shout out, an honorable mention to Scoot Henderson. So if you're hovering around like the 120 to 130 range or lower in regards to your redraft, let's say in a 12 team, 14 team, something like that, and you need an assist specialist, Scoot Henderson is your guy with the upside of obviously being the other best prospect, at least considered at the time in the draft class alongside Victor Wembanyama. So just shout out to him. But first guy I'm going to take is another points threes anchor that's not going to ruin my field goal percentage, and that's going to be Norman Powell. I also love that he is now the primary third option for the LA Clippers. And if there's going to be nights that Kawhi is out, it's going to be just Harden and Norman Powell going for it. Next person that I'm going to take is going to be Sticks, Jalen Smith. So this is one of my favorite sleepers in our previous August Dynasty Rank update video. I talked about Jalen Smith, his movement within our rankings, and also mentioned him as just one of my favorite redraft sleepers for this upcoming season. So this is somebody who touched the top, 100, top 120 range when Miles Turner was out. Now he is in Chicago. He pretty much only plays behind Nikola Vucevic and Patrick Williams. So I absolutely love, and he can play alongside Vucevic too. So I absolutely love this potential landing, like this potential sleeper situation for somebody like Jalen Smith.
Yep. Shout out Jalen Smith. Shout out Sticks. I love I love Jalen Smith and everything he's about. He's one of those guys similar to like a Naz Reid who can give you like that 1-1-1 potential. He can also shoot threes. He shot over 40% for Indiana, which was a big reason why he was the backup to Miles Turner. Um, Jalen Smith has that potential, especially to maybe potentially earn that starting spot later in the season if they do move forward from Nikola Vucevic. Here with my last pick, I am going to play a little bit safer here with someone who I know is going to get starting minutes and who the Lakers are really relying on is Rui Hachimura here.
Okay. Rui. I like that. All right, so let's go over our final result here. So I'm going to do my best to remember the placeholders. So for myself, and this is not in the order of which I drafted, I have Jalen Brunson, Paul George, Austin Reaves, Keegan Murray, Zion Williamson, Michael Porter Jr., Victor Wembanyama, Jarrett Allen, Jonathan Kuminga, Collin Sexton, Brandin Podziemski, Norman Powell, and Jalen Smith. For Mitchell, you have, and this is not in the order he picked them, this is just by position, Stephen Curry, Cade Cunningham, Ja Morant, Kevin Durant, Brandon Ingram, Devin Vassell, not Brandon Ingram, Naz Reid, Mark Williams, Ivica Zubac, Jalen Suggs, OG Anunoby, Dyson Daniels, I believe, is it supposed to be
Jaime
Hawkes? Hawkes
Yep.
instead of Sharp? Okay, Hawkes, and then Rui Hachimura as well. I love what we both did. So, getting ready for the redraft season. This is our first mock draft that we are doing, in preparation for that. We're obviously going to be doing more, both off camera and on camera. But Mitch, how do you feel about your squad for today?
Yeah, I think I did a pretty solid job building around that efficiency, but also kind of towards the end of the draft, getting those defensive stats that I really needed when they're like a Dyson Daniels, getting that upside in OG Anunoby later in the draft. But also, just having fun with it, drafting guys that I'm really excited to watch. Hypothetically, if this was my real draft, I'm very excited with the Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, two of my favorite players, given that I am a Warriors fan, but also mixed in with some of that other upside as well with some of these young guys like a Hawkes and a Dyson Daniels and a Jalen Suggs. So hopefully, we'll see how this turns out, given this is very early into the mock draft or redraft season. I'm sure a lot of these ADPs and Yahoo pre-draft ranks will shift as we move closer towards the season in mid-October, mid preseason area while we are drafting. So a lot of this can change. So like Andrew said, we are looking to host a community mock draft for redraft, another exercise, and hopefully that'll be more realistic with everyone in the community being active. And we can get a more holistic approach in there as well. So a lot can change in these coming months, but this is our early preview of what are some of our strategies, late round sleepers, for redraft in category leagues.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then, looking at just a little bit more back at what I did here. So not trying to care too much about free throws, but I do have some pretty good free throw merchants, even found some late ones such as Norman Powell, but focus more on field goal percentage with, even though I am strong in field goal percentage, still have a great amount of 3-point output and scoring output. So this is thanks to guys who are specialists in efficient scoring like Jalen Brunson, guys like Zion Williamson. Victor's probably going to have a higher field goal percentage this year. Jarrett Allen is always good for that. John Kuminga, Collin Sexton, Norman Powell, all those names. Jalen Smith to another degree as well. He's going to also provide some 3-pointers for me. I kind of wish I had another complimentary blocks piece alongside Victor and Jarrett, but at the same time, I did take a lot of out of position blocks throughout the rest of the draft, like with MPJ, like with John Kuminga and Keegan Murray too, Jalen Smith as well. So even though I didn't do another block specialist, there is a handful of guys on the back end of the draft that I took that are, not bad at blocks, at least somewhat average or just slightly below average, but are still going to contribute in that category. And then some,
And
a good
Andrew,
amount of skills guys.
let's be honest about your blocks. Victor Wembanyama is just going to carry you on most
He
weeks. There
probably
are going to
is.
be games where he's going to have 10 blocks. So I think you're okay any given point. I
That's
mean, unless he's
absolutely
injured,
true.
of
If
course,
anything,
right?
I probably maybe should have gone for a little bit more steals, but I of course love what Paul George is going to do for me there. Victor's obviously going to contribute in that regard too. Kuminga's going to get his fair amount of steals. So there's going to be good defensive output, solid rebounding, scoring too. So yeah, and then of course neither of us are really going to care about or look into turnovers at all.
So, Andrew, before we conclude this, I know this is something that we discussed, prior towards the recording. Were there any rookies that you had on your
Mm.
radar, like someone like a Zach Edey, who's potentially going to start for the Grizzlies, or someone a little bit more raw, like a Alex Sarr, who is going to play 30 minutes per game, but on a bad team?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the 2024 rookie class is going to be very useful from a standard category format. So standard, 12 team 9 category format. I mean, the only bets you should probably take in regards to a rookie is someone who's at least going to provide rebounds and blocks. So Zach Edey is for sure a candidate for that. And then of course, I mean, this is really like a late source. Like, let's say you're going to be a blocks heavy team, but maybe you don't have someone like Victor. So you need more stat padding for the block area. And you want to try to find some guys that you're able to grab late on in the draft process in order to stack on other talent too. Somebody like Edey or Sarr can definitely get the job done. Sarr is obviously a good candidate to get a heavy amount of minutes, and so the blocks are going to come with that because that's within his statistical profile. There's still some questions about what Edey's role is going to be, but us and Angle are pretty confident that he's going to play a good amount. And if he does, he's obviously going to be fed a lot in the pick and roll game with John Morant. He's going to get his rebounds because he is a massive human being, and he's going to get his blocks too. So I think that's the only two you should really be looking for if you do want to take somebody, but it should be late. It should be at least after round 10. Build out your full starting 10 first before you even begin to think about somebody from the 2024 rookie class.
Definitely, definitely, Andrew. I agree. Even some of the guys that were standouts in summer league, like a Reed Shepard for one, that really, you know, put everyone on notice. He's There's no role for him, set in stone, given how much, the Rockets are prioritizing Fred VanVleet. Fred VanVleet was one of the big reasons that they were a potential play-in team last season. And he also
Mm-hmm.
played 38 minutes a game. Ime Udoka loves his defensive tenacity. He provides much needed shooting. And Reed Shepard is of a similar mold, but someone who isn't necessarily tenured enough as a rookie. So we love Reed Shepard in Dynasty, not necessarily for redraft this year. Donovan Clingan is another one. There's a lot of centers in Portland. He may be someone that goes undrafted, but maybe later on, Time Lord gets injured again, given his, track record. Ayton might be traded. But yeah, he could be someone that you look later down on the waiver wire and could potentially be like a Walker Kessler type of rookie impact in the second half of the season that can really carry you. So it really depends. A lot of these rookies are kind of in a wait and see situation. But to your point, Andrew, I do agree that only Edey and Sarr should be in consideration for like a startup redraft setting.
Absolutely. I mean, there might be some rookies that emerge down the road, but we're going to have to let the season play out to determine, who's going to get into the category of we need to nosedive into a tank and play our young guys, who's going to suffer a catastrophic injury, and then a young guy takes his place. So that's something we're going to have to wait and see. So there's really only two guys that it's safe to take that gamble on early. But that wraps up our first mock draft of the, getting into the preseason vibe here, getting ready for the NBA season to start rolling around. So, we're going to also continue to pump out some other dynasty content too. We're going to be talking about the trade value of the 2024 rookie class soon. And then, of course, we're going to check back in with the Angle Dynasty League, cover some of the trades that have happened in there. And we're going to do a full power rank video for that league too, and show you how some of these teams have shaped up after the draft has concluded. So, like this video or like this audio recording, whatever platform you're listening on, and be sure to subscribe to the channel. And thank you for tuning in today.